I stole out of the Lost and found in middle school. I lived in rural southern Ohio for a year. When I was 14, I was borderline homeless. All I had were a hoodie, 3 pairs of dress pants, and 2 t-shirts that were beyond stretched. I had no school supplies nor money to get them as my mother was battling alcoholism, my sister left, and my brother was emotional mentally unavailable. A girl I had classes with had this cute, cross-hatch stitched pea coat. She wore it maybe twice. She took it off during PE, and I guess never got it back. A few weeks later, I was very cold. My sister's hoodie wasn't cutting it anymore because it was at least 11 years old. Me and another girl went to the Lost and found and I saw the beautiful coat, clean and lonely. I grabbed it and stuffed it into my plastic bag. I walked out of the school doors that day with a brand new coat. I'd wear it every day. I'd wear it to school, take it off at my locker so she wouldn't see it. I left that school 3 months later and moved to Las Vegas. And even now that I'm 21, and as I type this, I'm wearing it. It's not as bright and vibrant pink as it was back then, but it's perfect for spring and early fall. I'm sorry Hannah, I stole your coat. I used to have rude nicknames for the disabled people I would see on my walk to the grocery. A few years back I used to live next to some Section 8 housing, and I would see the same 3 folks from there every night on my walk to the grocery store. It wasn't a long walk, maybe about a mile, but the path went through a residential neighborhood without any street lights at all, so I was constantly bumping into these folks without seeing them coming. Now, they all had mobility issues and a few mental ones besides. It wasn't uncommon for them to say some bizarre nonsense to me as we passed, so I decided to play that game too. I was on a Jim Crow's kick at the time, so that was the basis for their nicknames. Rapid Roy had an old-fashioned wheelchair with no one to push it. He'd make about 400 feet of progress the whole time I was gone. Speedball Tucker had one of those motorized scooters and would tear ass up and down the street, icing out the lyrics as he shot by, and they call me Speedball. Speedball Tucker, terror of the highways, and all the mother truckers will tell you that the boy's mad to be driven in a rig like that. My favorite was Real Big Woman that would drive her scooter in circles around me as I walked. I called her Spike and I would sing at her too. You know the night that I fell in love with a roller derby queen. Round and round, oh round and round. The meanest hunko woman that anybody ever seen. Down in the arena. Round and round, go round and round. Round and round, go round and round. Round and round. After a while, I got kind of friendly with them and would say hey if I saw them already at the store when I got there. Sometimes I would see Roy out front smoking and I'd go hey Roy, you got a light? He never once commented on my calling him that. Turned out he was kind of a cool guy. I miss those folks sometimes and never shared this with anyone. I stole a couple $100 when I worked at Meacher. They had a promotion one time, spent $500 or more in one transaction and received $10 Meacher cash. You could spend on anything. I bought stuff like cigarettes and purses. I was 17. Anytime someone earned a $10 ticket, I would give them their receipt and say thanks and act oblivious. They either A, didn't say anything, so I pocketed the ticket, or B, they would say something like where's my coupon? And I would act dumb and apologize acting like I forgot. I've been stealing from my parents for a few months and guilt is hitting me. Also posted to true off my chest. I 15F have been stealing from my parents safe for months. My family is very well off and I get allowances of, translated to USD, but from other city, $64 a week. I've just gotten into the skincare craze like all my friends have, and it doesn't help that a single product could cost my entire week's food and transport. I was told the safe password to get something out for my father and noticed a large stash of cash with upwards of $10,000 or more in it. After a few months of thinking he changed the password, I was in a desperate situation as it was a Wednesday and I was already out of cash, so I went to my last resort and tried the combination once again, and to my surprise, it worked. It started with me only taking out $5-$10 for some quick meals transport, but then I joined a new friend group that went out almost twice a week. I started taking upwards of $20-$50 just to satisfy my needs. This quickly scaled up to $100-$150 to buy gifts for said friends, and I couldn't stop. I paid for my friends' whole lunch at expensive restaurants just to impress them, bought them expensive gifts, but at the same time, they were doing it for me too. It isn't any of their fault. They are amazing, and I'm sure they would have understood if I stopped, but I like seeing their smiles when I do it for them. I'm paranoid 247. My parents would check and notice money is missing, and every single time I think of it I feel terrible, yet still don't stop. I don't know if I should confess, as I know the consequences would be harsh, but I know I'll deserve all of it. I'm ready for the backlash. I just don't know what to do. Edit. This is a very quick update, but after seeing everyone's almost unanimous opinions, I've decided I'm going to tell them in a day or two. I know this might seem like stalling, but it was a serious choice for me, and I've picked up a part-time job, helping neighbors, to start earning extra income, as well as giving up $50 of my allowance a week to give back, keeping a little for transport. I think this is the right move, but I'm still very scared on how they will react to this information. I cut this girl's hair all the time in elementary school. IDK what it was, but when I was in middle school, this girl in front of me had long blonde hair, and I remember one day just grabbing a pair of scissors, and since nobody was paying attention, I cut a little off. I didn't even feel bad at the time, and nobody said anything, and she didn't even notice. So I did it again and again and again, until one day, I went for the big snip, and mid-shot the teacher noticed, but by that point it was too late. The next time she came to school, her hair was way shorter, like a short bob from her hair, being all the way down her back. I got scolded by the teacher, by my parents, and the girl never sat in front of me again. Each person that sat in front of me was pretty wary, and the teacher paid special attention to me. But at the time, I didn't even think I did a bad thing. Now as an adult, I actually realized that was an insane thing to do, and I feel a bit bad, but IDK what it is, but I feel like I would do it again. I'm not even sure I feel too much remorse, but it was wrong to do. It's not something to find funny, but it's truly insane to look back on, thinking about how I got scolded by my mom and she asked me why I did it, and I told her IDK, no reason really, just wanted to. I can't help but laugh in disbelief. In hindsight, it feels like I was unhinged as a child, and to the girl whose hair I chopped off for no reason, I hope your hair grew back out, and you completely forgot about me when I moved away. I killed my grandma with a prank and nobody knows. The year was 2012, and I was 18 years old. I had moved out of my parents' house and was living 3 hours north of my family. I got a girlfriend for the first time, and I told my family all about her on the phone. My grandma was a super nice Christian woman. I loved her to death, and I struggle every day knowing what I did. Obviously with her Christian beliefs I should be waiting till marriage to have sex, and she told me that growing up, but I didn't really hear much about it anymore after I got to around the age of 12. So one day I got this bold idea to prank my grandma. I called her on the phone and asked her to please be patient with me and not to speak out of anger once I tell you what happened. Then I proceeded to explain to her that my girlfriend was pregnant, followed by choking sounds on her end, and I instantly knew I had messed up. I hung up the phone after calling her name for 2 minutes and called my dad, who rushed over to her house to find her laying cold on the basement floor. To this day nobody knows what we talked about on the phone, and everybody is happy for me because I was able to have a conversation with her right before she passed. They tell me to stay positive and to know that she didn't die alone. She passed from an unexpected heart attack. Kill me God. Edit. Just because I have a dumb username and I replied to comments saying this is fake doesn't mean I'm making this up. This shit actually bothers me, and y'all calling me a liar based on nothing. I stole £50 to £80 a day from my summer job when I was younger. I used to work at a hand car wash when I was 16 for during the weekends, and then 45 days a week during the summer holidays, and the owner didn't treat me or the other employees very well. Constantly paying us late, speaking to us like SHT, and expecting us to work 8 to 10-hour shifts with no breaks, unless the car wash was quiet. Cars used to be priced based on their size, so a small car was £5, medium was £7 and large was £8, and then vans and similar sized vehicles were £10 plus. I was usually on the drying and taking payment duty, so after a few weeks I got fed up with the way I was treated by the owner and started to occasionally put the wrong size car through the till and put the extra in my pocket. So £7 and £8 cars were going in the till as a £5 car, and I was then profiting 23 quid. At first I only did it a couple of times a day, mainly because it wasn't busy enough during the first few months of the year, but once summer came around, it was a whole different story. Warm weather meant we were very busy. When I had finished the school year I picked up some extra shifts, and instead of charging the wrong amount on the till, I just started pocketing the whole amount. Did this to every 3 cars or so too, and no one ever found out. I was getting a good 50 quid extra a day minimum on the busy days, and probably stole around 23k over the space of a year, with the bulk of it coming from the summer, which for a 15-year-old who had no bills to pay etc. was a large amount of money, and I'd have my wages on top of that. I lived like a king for a while. I stole a bike from someone I used to work with. As the title says, I stole a bike from a former coworker. I've worked in kitchens and restaurants basically all my life with the exception of a few factories here and there for the extra cash. I'm not legally allowed to drive until I'm 27 for DUIs along with underage drinking, making my main means of transportation my own 2 feet or whatever bike I hop for a week before selling it off for a few dollars. Well, I started a job at a kitchen that was a few miles away from where I was staying, and I came to the conclusion that I didn't want to walk there every day and that I was going to keep my eyes out for a new set wheels. On my way to work, I was walking down an alley when I noticed that someone had left their garage unattended and wide open for anyone to just walk in if they pleased. Well, this same garage had a brand new racing bike in there with a bottle holder, speedometer, the whole 9 yards. So I snagged it and rode it work, parking it behind the dumpsters in a fenced in area. A few days later, my coworker, we'll call her Jenny, walked talking about how she had bought a bike about a week ago and that she was getting ready to some kind of bike race and that she was really upset about it. I do not feel bad. She was a bitch with little to no work ethic. This was over a year ago and I still have the bike for the comedic value. I lied about being colorblind up until I moved schools. It all started in 5th grade and we had to color a shoe. I thought mine looked cool but all the kids laughed at it. I then started crying and yelling, I can't help it, I'm colorblind. I'm not, and I had to keep this up until 8th grade. After I moved schools and graduated, I got a message on Instagram from a guy I used to go to school with before I moved apologizing for the incident in 5th grade. Should I tell him how I qualified for state finals by hiding in a bush? So, this story takes place around 6 years ago. I was in 2nd year of secondary school. Junior high to American readers, around 14 years old. I participated in cross-country running annually, not out of passion, but to miss a day of school and get pocket money for the shop after buying loose rollers off my brother's friend. The event was held every year at the same cross-country grounds about a 20-minute bus from my school. The big day arrives. I'm wearing essential running clothes, full tracksuit, puffy Super Dre jacket. Yes, these were trendy back then, and my trusty Air Maximum 90s that would slide through mud had I actually have attempted the race. The day is wet, cold and miserable. I decide on the way there the last thing I want to be doing is running 56 kilometers in this horrific weather, then waiting for everyone else to finish, then sitting on a stuffy muddy bus shivering till I get home. No thanks. I had ran this course before and knew it was 2 laps of a loop with a large forced-bushy area in the center. The race starts. I set off at a sprint so I don't alert my teacher to any potential fuckery. Run about 200 meters down the track. Check over my shoulder. No steward watching. So I proceed to hit the smoothest swan dive ever attempted straight into this bush. Everyone else thought I slipped and joined back after lol. Got extremely wet, cold and muddy, but was it worth it? Every day of the week, I gleefully watched everyone else, my friends included, suffer through the remainder of the race while I chilled thinking I was Lord Muck smoking a Raleigh in the forest. The only crack in my plan was I failed to realize these were the Leinster final qualifiers. State province. So I wait for the first group to come around and slink my way craftily into the back. I run about 40 meters to the finish line, looking like I had just ran the course due to my poor fitness, muddy clothes and not being able to run more than 10 meters without dying. My pet teacher is ecstatic, congratulating me on qualifying for Leinsters. I can still hear him saying and doing it in that big jacket as well. I had to hide my shock in the moment, but I played it off all the while feeling incredibly bad for my teacher who had no idea of my backquote abilities. The realization of running an actual track in front of a huge crowd in Leinster finals finally dawned on me, and I proceeded to backquote tear my hamstring playing with my dog days later. Yes, the same dog eating everyone's homework. The memory came to me today as I visited the place in which the course is located. I had to smile to myself upon remembering, and Mr. Upton, if you're ever out there reading this, my apologies. I dunked water onto my budgie because it flew outside. Okay, so I don't think I would have ever told anyone this, but I just found out this subreddit exists, so I've decided to say it here. When I was 10 years old, I had a budgie. Well, 2 budgies. One was called Blue and the other was called Snowy, male and female. I used to love playing with them, stroking them, etc. I was always scared of accidentally hurting them, so I was usually just an observer of them. One day I let them out, since I didn't like how they were trapped all the time. At the time I had been filling up a rubber bucket of water to prepare them for their bath. What I didn't remember to do was close the window in the room they were in. So as it happened, Blue went out the window and into the garden. I quickly shut the window before Snowy could escape, then ran outside with the bucket. Now I think it's relevant to say that these budgies were very well trained. So when Blue saw me come outside, I'm pretty sure he was ready to fly onto my shoulder. However, I wasn't in a stable mindset, and I'm pretty sure I was sobbing and crying cause I got very scared. So my first instinct was to throw the water onto the bird so it couldn't fly. I had watched it get bathed before and seen that it couldn't fly when wet, and I saw Blue attempt to fly to me and drop. He fell gently onto the grass and I scooped him up and wrapped him in a cloth, then shut every single window in the house out of fear. The two were given away when I turned 13, and now that I'm 22 years old I hear that they have actually sadly passed away, which is sad, but I'm glad they had a happy life. I'm definitely aware of how fucked up this sounds, but I do swear that I never intended harm on the little things and I did love them. But yeah, looking back, it can seem like animal abuse, and I do feel kind of guilty.